My name is Kate Holterhoff. I'm a senior analyst at RedMonk, and my guest today is Jack Herrington. He's a principal software engineer at Netlify. He's the co-host of Front End Fire. He's a YouTuber and a TanStack AI maintainer. So jazzed to have you on the show today, Jack. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, actually. I'm a little bit cold, so if you hear like the nasal thing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I didn't get it from Microsoft Build. I know we were together at Microsoft Build. I didn't get it from there. My boss, who also lives locally, was like, you know, her kids got it. So I'm like, and it was funny too, because my wife was like, you got it at Microsoft Build, and then you get me. I'm like, no. Local.
It's a local cold. Okay.
Yeah.
This is
it's
good
not
to
that
know.
bad.
I
It's
know.
just like, just like a little thing in the back of the throat.
Oh, yeah.
If I sound
No,
weird.
I think it's going around right now because my 4-year-old, he's got the sniffles too. It's a summer cold. All right. Well, I
hate summer. Summer cold's the worst. Okay. Yeah.
I will be thinking salubrious thoughts for you,
Oh, thank you.
and that your wife doesn't succum to whatever you brought home.
That is the biggest word I'll hear all day. Salubrious. Well done.
Yes. Yes, you're welcome. All right. So, yes, as Jack sort of intimated, we met at Microsoft Build. So jazzed to have him on here. I am a longtime listener of Front End Fire, super fan, if you will. And according to Jack, I nerd sniped him, which cracks me up.
I gotta say, because your data set was so cool. I am a sucker for cool data sets, and Kate has this awesome site called the Visual Haggard, and the idea is that it's a resource for information about what's the first name again? So it's a great name.
H. Rider Haggard.
Rider Haggard, like that name alone is awesome.
It's heavy.
But yeah, it's amazing.
Agreed.
Of course, you have to have a name like that when you're going to write basically the Indiana Jones / Alan Quartermain books. And she's got all these pictures in there, and it was all cataloged and stuff. And she's like, what else can we do with this? And of course, like I skipped out on the night's events and then just went back to the hotel and just went hog wild on this thing, which is so much fun. It was just such a great. I love great data sets.
Oh, well, for those of you just listening to this just with your headphones, just know that I am blushing right now. This is so sweet. Yes, no, this is very nice of you. Yes, the Visual Haggard is a labor of love. Begun it in 2013, spent forever on it. It was one of my academic projects, and I still maintain it. I was able to vibe code it back up, Ruby on Rails app. And Jack was able to like completely reinvent it using TanStack AI. So super jazzed. We're going to have that coming out here soon.
That's a fun thing, by the way. If you are into that sort of like just having a pet project like that you take from technology to technology to technology is actually really cool. I have a thing called Fret Navigator that I have taken all the way from like Mac OS version 3 all the way through to I'm implementing it now using AI and yada yada yada. And it's a thing about like finding chords and scales on fretboards. But nowadays it's much more about like automatically generating songs and stuff like that. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
I love talking to technologists who are musicians. Like that is, such a good synthesis of skill sets there. So that's really cool.
It's funny, like, I wouldn't say that I'm a musician because like the reason I got into it in the first place is I was really bad at guitar, but I was really good at the math behind guitar. And so recently I just actually started like learning guitar. I would have a guitar teacher now, and I would actually start saying that I'm almost a musician. Like it's close, like I can almost start saying I actually know how to play guitar. So,
I don't keep terms like that. My goodness. This is, you're a musician, Jack.
There you go.
I said it.
I can clap.
All right. Just own it. Yeah.
Just own it.
Yeah.
Own it.
I know. I got the triangle. I'm a musician. Just, everyone step back. Okay. All right. But hey, let's talk about the thing. Okay. So we are here to talk about this is actually going to be kind of a downer after this intro.
No, it's cool. It's very interesting from like a vulnerability standpoint. What should you do? How do you all that?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the node ecosystem and how TanStack got hacked.
Oh, how TanStack got hacked. Okay, so TanStack. I mean, let's just start at the beginning here because I suspect many folks don't even know what TanStack is. So, but yes, it's been in the news. So folks maybe who have never heard of it beforehand, who aren't in the front end space, were probably like, what the heck is TanStack and why is it being associated with Mistral and OpenAI and all of these things? So first off, What the heck is TanStack?
What the heck is TanStack? So TanStack is a set of libraries, like an ecosystem of related libraries that kind of patch holes in the React ecosystem. And it
Okay.
started off with React Query back in the day. Actually, it started off with React Table. And so Tanner
Oh.
Lindsley, who is the guy behind TanStack, there's a whole story about that name, but it created this thing called React Table, which was basically just how to maintain tables well in React. It's a thing, sorting and filtering and all that stuff, right? And so it's a pain. And so the idea
Yeah.
was, you bring in this library, this headless library, you handle all the UI, the look and feel of it, but it handles all the kind of crunchy logic. And so that's kind of the vibe behind like basically every TanStack package is, we kind of like handle the grunt work for you so that you can concentrate on the cool stuff. And so it kind of blossomed. So React Table, then React Query, which became like, I think it's crazy. It's installed on like 30% of all React apps is React Query. I mean, everybody uses it. And so what happened was, as we started to kind of build out the ecosystem, we needed a new banner for it. So it was like TanStack, and it wasn't particularly React because, we handle Solid and Vue and all the rest.
Yeah.
And then I came in, I guess, 2 years ago. I was like tired of doing just the YouTube thing. So I wanted to do some open source as well. And I was like, Tanner, can I join up? And he's like, yeah. And so I started off just doing documentation. Then I started working on TanStack Router and TanStack Start, which is where our lovely security issue came in.
Ooh.
And then just around like React Conf 2025, I was like, hey, Tanner, we need an AI library. Like, we need to like get into that space. And so a friend of mine and I started off with this AI library, and it's been doing well too. So we're really excited about it. But the ecosystem is now, I think, 17 different packages. I just did a video on this where I took
Wow.
all 17 and put them into a single app, and it actually worked out. It's no big deal. And it was funny too,
Amazing.
because
Yeah.
just using TanStack AI as opposed to the Versal AI SDK, it was like a savings like 740K of dependencies. I was like, dang, that's cool. Like, happy about that.
That's
So yeah,
reasonable.
no,
Yeah, that's good.
it's an ecosystem of helpful libraries for like JavaScript, TypeScript developers primarily. We're huge into TypeScript, huge into typing, but it's not framework specific per se. It works on, as I say, like React, Vue, Solid, Svelte, a lot of different stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's TanStack.
That's TanStack.
You came in 2 years ago. How many folks are like kind of consistent maintainers in the way that you are?
Every project has
big's
a
the team?
champion. So how big's a team?
Okay. So
So
17.
kind of in that space. Like some people are overlook, multiple projects. Like, I think, yeah. So
Okay.
generally in that, I would say, 15, 20 space. But it has kind of brought together a lot of amazing talent. Like,
Yeah.
I just love that about it, because
Yeah.
talk about how you want to be happy in software engineering. It's all about being on a really good team. Well, this is a
Yes, right.
really good team. Like, these guys
That's
know what they're
awesome.
doing, and it's great. It's great to see.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've met Tanner and he's great. So I can imagine he would draw a very charismatic group of folks around him, such as yourself. So this is exciting. So we've got this great group of folks, passionate, building something cool. And then why don't you give us the lowdown on what actually happened?
Yeah. So what happened was that I guess somebody glommed on the idea that like TanStack Router / Start, which is our variant of basically Next.js. So if you are thinking about like Next.js, there is a viable alternative, and that is TanStack Start. And a lot of companies are starting to move over to that. It handles, server-side rendering and server functions and all the stuff that you need to build a modern web app. I built your visual Haggard, rebuilt it on that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's getting a lot of play. It's getting a lot of installs, in particular TanStack Router. So what the hackers found was that we had kind of a vulnerability in the way that we over cached to make CI/CD more efficient. I mean, if you're doing GitHub Actions and all that, you want to make sure that they're quick, right? And so what we do is from iteration to iteration, we tend to cache stuff, including the node modules, which are a huge thing to download. And that basically opened us up to having our cache poisoned by somebody who basically forked us and reused our cache and was able to poison our cache such that when Manuel, who's the author on TanStack Router and TanStack Start, did a actual push, like a good push of stuff, he actually pulled in this poisoned package, which then when run, so it injected itself into like router start. So when you started your application, it would actually go and then try and mine secrets off of your machine. And those packages were alive for about 3 to 4 hours, and there were some downloads. It is essentially what they call a mini Shai-Hulud attack. So that's kind of fun. So basically a self-replicating worm, right? Once it gets on your machine, it then tries to go and exploit other machines, given your, NPM tokens to try and republish packages and all that kind of stuff. So that's what it's trying to do. And so it was alive for 3 to 4 hours. Our unit test picked it up. We picked it up pretty quickly, and we're able to bring down all of the packages that were infected, and then go and later on change our build procedures so that we no longer did this kind of aggressive caching of artifacts that basically exposed us to this. But it was an incredibly sophisticated attack, which is, I think, in hindsight, and at the time, even at the time, we were looking at like, this is not like your average attack. This was like somebody who spent a lot of time looking at our build system, which is itself open source, and then probably with something like Claude and like going through and saying like, how can I go and attack this? Or maybe I am the maintainer of this project. Like, tell me how it could be attacked, right? Or something like that. And then architecting a very, very sophisticated attack. I mean, they actually had to like predict tokens. I mean, it was an incredibly sophisticated attack. We were impressed by it, and it didn't really, which is funny because it didn't really have a huge impact. I would say, it wasn't like the craziest thing, and a couple of days later, I can't remember, probably Vercel or whatever got yet another hack, and it was out of the news almost right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so has anyone who was hacked reached out to you and been like, I had to burn my laptop or whatever?
No. Although that is the thing. By the way, so it's Team PCP.
Okay.
Was the
Those are
original
the hackers.
folks behind it. The campaign, the mini Shai-Hulud. Yeah. Lovely.
Oh, man. What do we know about them? Anything? Like geographically, motives? Like
same
they just
group
want to see the
tied
world
to
burn?
Trivy, the Aqua Security hack, and the Bitwarden CLI attack, which is kind of a bummer because I don't use Bitwarden, but I use 1Password. But I know Paige used Bitwarden, so that was a big deal.
Ooh.
I don't know. You use a password manager, right? Please.
Yeah,
absolutely.
good. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
God, yes. Why? Yeah. I mean, come on. I can't remember all those things. Okay. So these are old hat in terms of like, they're hacking everything. So these folks are experts, and they happen to get you in their Shai-Hulud sort of umbrella of all these different hacks, these different worm attacks.
Well, we were the entry point. It was specifically targeted at TanStack Router. And then from there,
Flattering.
it was going to, that was going to go and infect other people's machines. After which it was then going to go and try to go and publish packages where. So the basic idea is you get onto this Shai-Hulud worm gets onto my machine. I am a developer. I have GitHub tokens or NPM tokens and packages, and now it's going to go then and try and infect those packages and keep on going, which kind of seems a little edgy to me, to be honest. Like, that is a very small attack vector, but I guess it's worth your time. As a hacker, I don't really know.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I know. Because for a while, they were doing
credential.
like Bitcoining, Bitcoin mining. That was
Right.
the idea, right? But
Yeah.
now we're just stealing secrets. Just,
Which
that's
is
the
like
thing. And you can't even just
AI
delete these things.
mining?
I mean, I guess. I don't know. Let me ask you this, Jack. What's your experience with security before this? I mean, I think of you as a front-endy guy. Like now you're what? Now you're going to DEF CON? Like you got your security hat on?
Dude, no.
OWASP?
I
You got all
I don't
the
want to go to
OWASP
DEF CON.
memorized? Okay.
I don't want to go to DEF CON because I know that like people that go to DEF CON, like their phones get hacked and stuff like that. And I would say I kind of like am a security kind of light guy personally.
Security light. Okay.
I mean, practical security. I do use a password manager. And then for Netlify, obviously, I don't. The cool thing about Netlify is personally, I don't actually have access to a bunch of the secrets. So
good.
they could get me, but it doesn't really make it. It doesn't help them,
Yeah.
It's not like we give out secrets to everybody for production. It's a small set. So that's good. But actually, I do have a little bit of front end security stuff. I worked at a company called Fortify, which got acquired by HP, and that was doing like back in the day static security analysis of applications, and then got into penetration testing. But I think a lot of that is kind of just old, I guess, old hat. I mean, nowadays you just got Mythos and Claude. They can help you find security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And wow.
I've heard it on good authority that pen testing is dead. So
yeah,
they didn't say it like that. I said that. But it seems like it was Tanya Jenka. She came on the podcast to talk to me about this. She's a real expert in this. And she was like, if you see yourself in a career in pen testing, maybe rethink your career choices. Like this is now is the time to leave. This is, become upskill. This is not going to be a thing. Same thing with like bug bounties.
Because AI is basically just going to like just hammer, your site.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not a good time to be. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it is a great time because we have to think outside the box. This is like the Wild West, a brave new world, whatever metaphor you want to use to try to figure out what's going on.
Well, that's the thing. I've been doing this big gig I've been coding since I was 13 years old, and I'm an old dude.
My goodness.
So yeah, and
you've seen a few things.
I've seen a few things. But what I can tell you is, it's the usual. It's the constant is change, right? And so in your career, you can't just stick on one technology because if you do, it's gonna be gone. Like I spent years in like C and C++, and then I moved over to Python and Ruby and Node, and you kind of take those basic core principles of building apps for people, and then you just take them to whatever, technologies are the technologies of the day. And don't say things like, in my day, I've seen this pattern before, because that'll make you sound old or very ageist. But we were talking about before, right? You're with Visual Haggard, with Threat Navigator, you go and you kind of take the, you try out new technologies with new things, and it's like, oh wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, people always ask me like, why are you in this for so long? And it's always like, there's always something, there's always something new, and the new now is obviously AI, and I'm just enthralled. I mean, I love it. I just love it. I know it's like the water and the data centers and yada, yada, yada. There's all that. But like, I love the potential of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm right there with you. I self-identify as a vibe analyst these days, so I'm all in. This is, you were in good company. So this is interesting, though. So you have a bit of experience with security. This wasn't like all new. I want to hear about the behind-the-scenes situation at TanStack when you discovered that this incident had occurred, because you wrote one of the postmortems. Like you're one of the co-authors on that, and so you must have been close to it.
I wasn't super close to it.
You just volunteered to write. All right.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, that was good. You said you did documentation, so.
Well, I started off in that. But one of the things is like I'm kind of one of the front faces of TanStack, trying to make it more accessible for folks, trying to communicate about it. And so, my thing was coming in and making sure that we were telling people like what to do now. Like, and we
Ah,
had this hack, what do you
yeah.
do? And, there were some basic pieces of advice around like, use a package manager where you can set a minimum age on packages. Is
Okay.
the big win. The interesting thing about this particular hack, though, is that it didn't require this post install step that a lot of these hacks do, which is
Hmm.
that you
Interesting. Yeah.
install this package and that package in turn runs some code after it, like presumably to do things like a native compile or whatever.
Uh
Um,
huh.
and that would be the valid use. That is not the case here. This is actually injecting code into your app, and then your app is the one that actually does the exploit, which is pretty intense, I gotta say. So that was
Yeah.
pretty interesting all on its own. Yeah, we were given a heads up by a security company. I can't remember which one exactly, and then
Oh.
that stopped us in our tracks. And yeah, so we started the process of making sure that with npm that we were able to bring all the packages that were exploited down, and then start crawling through what actually happened, and quickly, like,
Wow.
getting rid of the caching stuff, because that's one of the cool things about this kind of thing is like, you know caching is something you kind of bring in later as a performance optimization, so sometimes it's easy to like just pull it back out again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Uh, Interesting. Can you share which security company it was that reached out to you, or do they want to remain anonymous?
Yeah, I'll have to go take a look at that, because I
Okay.
do.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So that's interesting then. So, do you know, like for other observability or like maybe even for like fancy enterprise software, do they typically have like observability that would have alerted them to this ahead of time so that you wouldn't have needed a third party? And is that something like you're implementing now?
Well, as I say, like this also triggered our unit tests, so we would have figured it out
Ah,
even without that.
oh,
They
you
just
okay?
they were
Got it.
actually, yeah. There are companies that are specifically looking and looking at what's going into npm to go and
Right.
see if stuff's going in that's bad. And obviously, it's kind of one of those
Oh,
things where you target the ones that are get a lot of downloads, because those are the
sure.
ones that are most impactful. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
TanStack's got a bunch of packages, including, amazingly, TanStack Router, which is on that list. I mean,
Mm.
I gotta say, from my perspective, it's pretty amazing how TanStack Start has bloomed in the last, like, I'd say 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, from being like a kind of a niche thing to being a really viable competitor with Next.js. Like
Yeah. Huh.
our downloads have really gone up, and so that's why you get the attention of the malicious folks, and that's also why
Right.
you get on the security scanner list. Sort of this one and that
Yeah.
one together.
Right. Right. So the good with the
Good place to
bad
be and
there.
bad place to be, I guess.
Yes. Okay. So your unit test would have found it eventually.
Yeah.
Did you like speed up how often unit tests run then? Like, is that part of the
Well,
mitigation?
it's just triggered based on code changes, right? So
Okay.
yeah.
Which makes
Um,
perfect sense. Okay. Got it.
right. But well, in this case, what would happen was we'd run unit tests again on the poison stuff as part of the legitimate release, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that actually didn't pass unit tests, and that we saw that too. So that was an addition.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
Um,
had two signals coming in.
yeah. Another important thing that is I kind of glossed over, but really important to know out of this is like we have
Okay.
a very security centric process for releasing these packages. And it's kind of a
All
pain in
right.
the butt, actually, as a maintainer. It's kind of a pain. So think about like the
Yeah.
nuclear release codes kind of thing. In
Oh
order for
man.
us to get a package out, or me, like I've got to do a PR on the package itself, get it approved. That requires another person right there to do that. Then that's got to
Mm-hmm.
go into main, and that's got to get built, and then that creates a change set PR. So that's another pull request that needs another human reviews. That's another
Oh my
keys
God.
switch, and then finally, when that gets run, then that actually gets published. And of course, if people are on like a PMPM thing where, it's a minimum of a day, like, it'll still be a day before they even are able to use it. So we are very security conscious, even before this, right? That was all happened before all this. The way that they were able to do this particular thing is kind of come in, as I say, through that back door of, hey, we're not even going to go and try to do like a legit thing here, do a PR, get a review, blah, 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 blah. No, none of that. This is all like, we're going to come in the back door through this cache that you're reusing, and we're going to poison that cache, and then we're going to like kind of linger around until the next release, and then we're going to go and be part of that and then put it out.
Okay. Yeah. So the complexity of that is reminding me of what, as I speak to these security conscious folks who are saying it's a brave new world out there, we're all struggling to keep up. They talk a lot about chained attacks, and that's the kind of thing that Mythos is good at fighting. Would you consider this to be chained because there were so many different things that needed to happen in a sequence?
Very much.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is it. This is a good example that we can all point to and say, like, here is a chained attack, and this is why this is so dangerous, because we can't function the way that we have in the past. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a pull request target attack, and then that gave access, and so they could do a cache poisoning thing, and then there was an OIDC token extraction thing from the memory. I mean, it was like it was a multi-step, extremely well researched and implemented attack, and like none of those pieces alone would be enough. It was impressive, which makes me think kind of like as we were looking through this, I'm like, this is certainly a human aided by AI, possibly. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you got to think about like just the number of the kind of, I don't know, picayune, like little vulnerabilities they had to, as you say, like chain together. It was just super impressive. And then to get almost nothing out of it, it amazes me.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be when we would
more in tokens to do all the research than it did to actually what they got back.
Well, yeah, in this case, but I mean, we'll get into that. But I mean, when I think about the like broader picture of where we are today with all of these types of attacks, it used to be you go to like an HR would have a video about like, if you'd find a USB drive in the parking lot, don't plug it into your machine.
Don't plug it in your machine. Exactly.
Or like, don't hit phishing attack emails. And it's like, that's like cute now. That's pedestrian. We've moved beyond that. That is not even
Although I'm
thing.
sure it's going to come back around again, because people are like so in tune to like these hyper focus attacks that like, the random like, person calling you up saying, hey, it's, my nephew or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, God, that. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we've supercharged the bad actors. They got in.
Sadly.
Sadly, I know. So you wrote this postmortem. You would have found it anyways. They found it. So a couple folks pointed this out. But one of the things that jumped out to me on the postmortem that you posted on TanStack's website was that this was a GitHub knew about this, that they had alerted you to that this is possible. So, I mean, I guess we could take this two ways. Like, and you take responsibility, like, okay, we knew this was a possibility. I'm sure there's like a million of these sort of situations of like, knowing that there's so much minutia there. But there was that. I mean, so my question
is the thing with GitHub, it's like yes, sure, but there is also penalty for like the GitHub Actions and the amount of CPU that it takes and all this.
Yeah.
And we are an open source group, and we only have a certain amount of credits for GitHub Actions, which is what drive, they're incredibly important. Like every single pull request is run through GitHub Actions and all this. And it's so trying to optimize that is important for us, right? It reduces our spend or it reduces our credit usage. And because we don't want to get cut off. If we get cut off, then we don't actually, can't actually release anything. So that's So it's kind of like, here we got a vulnerability because you're using this cache stuff, but you also have to use the cache stuff because
you have to use the cache. Okay. So you've guessed my question here, which is like, it sounds like GitHub could be making this easier on open source maintainers by perhaps relaxing token the price of tokens so that you're not forced to cache and have this vulnerability that they already knew about and had told you about. So because so that's what I'm hearing at least. What would you say? Like, what could GitHub have done to have helped you? Like, maybe they did tell you, but like, could they have done anything else that maybe would have eased this?
I mean, I think coming out with standardized flows that they would support, for
interesting.
the standard packages or the
Yeah,
standard
sure.
environments that folks use.
Okay.
I think, Google has one of these already that I use in my own projects that is a nice CI/CD flow. It's just a complicated thing. We actually have like one of those 17 packages is something that most people don't use. There's coming which we use internally in all of our packages called TanStack config, and it does all of this work. And the reason that we have one to do it is because we want them all to run the same way, because we don't want to solve that problem n number of times. But these CI/CD flows are like, they're complex, like really complex.
My God.
And handling, like, it would be great, honestly, if they had a real, because so many projects use Node, like, why not just kind of hyper optimize at least that, right? Like at least the Node modules kind of ecosystem. So many projects use this that it would be good to like just hyper optimize that in particular.
Yeah, like a golden path situation and maybe even guardrails around it.
Right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I listened to
now, of course, they could be doing that,
with...
and I could just be like, because it's not my day job to like do, like, I'm one of those people who like, once I get the CI/CD working, I don't want to touch it actively.
Hands off.
Like, I'm like, it's like one of those saltwater fish tanks. Like, you get it running, you don't mess with it, right? You just
don't mess with it. Yeah.
Don't mess with it. Because I just want to work on the app. I just want to work on my AI libraries or whatever. You like add new features, do the fun stuff. I don't care about build. Who cares about build? Like, I'm sure
no one I know.
There are people out there who like really care about build, so I don't want to offend those folks. But like, I don't personally.
Right. Well,
not my deal.
Anyone who's listening to this recognizes that you are a developer, a passionate one, and so this is your personal opinion, and they're entitled to their own. Okay. Right. So it's reminding me, though, of an interview I listened to with Firas from Socket, the security company. You're familiar? Yes. And he had talked about there being like some vulnerability with GitHub where it was like older commits could then be used against them. And there was like a way to get out of it. Anyways, so there's things in the pipes at GitHub that make it challenging to keep things locked down, even if they know it's a vulnerability. So perhaps at this point, they've even improved that. I can provide a link to that episode. It was on the JavaScript Jabber podcast. And Firas is just great. He's so smart. Oh my God. So I know that there are many things going on around NPM and security and just like versioning and trying to lock all that down that make it very challenging to do the right thing for developers. And I think that's that's not a controversial thing to say. Like, it is hard, and it's only getting harder.
For the OSS developers, yes, right?
Yeah.
But not for the downstream developers. I think the downstream developers, pin your versions if it's a big deal, but like do the PMPM thing or the NPM. Every package manager now has a way to go and say, I only want to use packages that have been around for more than a day, which is pretty sane. And then, use that and only override that when you get like a CVE from, I don't know, whatever, Next or whatever, saying like this one. But even then, like if you're on the day old, you probably don't get it, You're probably fine.
Oh, that's good. Well, I love to put on my little tinfoil hat, though, and think about, like, the CVEs we don't know about. Like, those are the ones that they found. There's a file cabinet somewhere. Yes. Well, those, and then just any sort of hacks that we're not even aware of, or these chained ones that are possible, but maybe they're not doing anything outrageous, like, mining Bitcoin or something that's like, whoa, the sirens are blaring. We can, we're all aware of this. But, like, the potential exploits. I don't know. Anyways, I'll take my tinfoil hat off now. But
so, like, I'm just not to knock on Next.js too much, but Next.js came out with a set of vulnerabilities around server functions that were actually core React vulnerabilities around server functions. And those were not even chained. Literally, you just
Okay.
send any server a malicious payload, one-off shot, and it would go and execute it on the server, and there you go. Scary, like really
Wow.
scary level of vulnerability in that. The TanStack Start, which is our competitor with Next.js, uses an entirely different method of server functions. We don't depend on the React server functions because we support both Solid and React. So we created our own server function mechanism.
Oh, okay.
And our mechanism, we did get a CVE on it based on the underlying like JSON system that we use to encode and decode the server function data. And it was one of those multi-stage attacks. And even if you were able to get through like all 3 chained elements of the attack, like you still really wouldn't get access to all that much. So it was nice to see that like TanStack is really does, like, even at the runtime level, take security really critically. And so we obviously like brought on the changes to the downstream or the upstream library that did that for us. So we are a much more secure, I would say, framework than Next.js.
Than the competition. That's fine. A little healthy, competition. That we'll just leave it there. We welcome that here. This is a safe space for laying out an argument for why you think one thing is better than another. This is fine. Okay. All right. So to kind of summarize where what we've been talking around here, how are you comforting the community, or what concrete fixes have you implemented in order to make sure that this won't happen again, and that the community should feel safe and secure in using any TanStack library available?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we changed our CI/CD policies. I mean, we actually went through a full-on like post-mortem and came up with a bunch of actions around it. We actually have we had 2 blog posts on this. We got 1 blog post on the initial incident, and then we had another blog post going, like detailing down to the nits and nooks and crannies, like everything that we've done in here. It was, and in fact, it actually impacted me because I had like 2FA on my GitHub account, and like I think I had like every 2FA on there. Like I had the authenticator, pretty much every method that you could have on there. And it was like, he's telling me like, hey, you can't access the org anymore. I'm like, what? And it turns out that like SMS is not a secure or super secure 2FA in their mind. So I actually had to remove it as an option. So I can't do SMS level 2FA anymore. I have to use the authenticator.
Wow.
Which is fine because I use 1Password, and 1Password does an awesome job at OTAs. So at OTAs. So it's like, and like fingerprint authentication and all that stuff. So it was not a big deal, but it was interesting. Like even that, and this is even after we did a whole thing around OIDC tokens and changing the publish flow. I mean, it's been an ongoing thing for months now. The NPM stuff and changes of security, both on the NPM side and on the GitHub side, so it's kind of like, it's good, but because it's making us more secure, but it's also like, it does take quite a bit of time and effort to get that, right. So,
All right.
thing. And hassle.
Amazing. Okay. So the community should feel much better. They should, if they were worried, they should say,
like
hey,
we pay the tax,
You did.
in the pain of doing this, and then you guys get the you guys get the benefits. But I would say as consumers, like, set that minimum age, my friends. Like that's the big deal right there. Because these things don't last. Like if it was, the packages were out for about 3 hours, so that's it. The whole window of time, you'd have to go in and have downloaded the package within that 3-hour window. They were pulled out of the NPM repository. They're gone. Can't get it. And so if you had that minimum age set to a day, you would have not been impacted by this at all. And do you really want it better, more recent than a package. More recent than an egg. I mean, come on. Like, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No one's beta testing packages anymore. This is
Well, you could,
we don't want to
but
be
I
doing
mean,
that.
if you get like the production stuff though,
Right.
nobody's going to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
One would hope.
One would hope.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, this is what makes me nervous. We got all these vibe coders, myself included, and I don't know. It's late at night. I'm hitting just accept on my Claude code.
No.
Who said that? Is that me?
Yeah, right.
Is that, oh yeah. So
well, as an
I don't
example,
know.
like on Netlify. So if you go on Netlify vibe code a project, so we have this thing called Start with Agent Runners, and you can go on to Netlify, create a site or create a project, and then literally there's just a prompt, and it's like, hey, I want such and such and such and such, and it goes off and it uses Claude or Codex or whatever to go and build it for you. It's actually a really cool thing, and we create TanStack Start projects. Ta-da! Now Lovable does too. So there's a whole bunch of companies that are starting to like generate TanStack Start as their default kind of project kit. And we have pinned all the version numbers of those TanStack Start versions because that's what we do. We want to make sure that you are starting off with a really rock solid starting point. And so we pin all the versions and then we test it all, make sure that all those starting kits work. And then later on, like maybe a week, whatever, some period of time later, we want to go and update that. And we do a refresh pass where we bring in, the newer packages. But, we're giving you a good, stable, secure starting point. So, yeah.
I like that. Okay. So kind of offloading that part of it that could be dangerous to a trusted provider, a cloud provider.
Sure, but you could go on and say to Claude, hey, I want to be on the cutting edge stuff, my man. Go and make it happen.
Oh, geez.
So up to you.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then, because this is one approach that many open source projects have taken is to close down external PRs. And so Ladybird is the most recent to join in this. We've also got Ghosty, so Mitchell Hashimoto's project, and then
I love
Tail
Ghosty.
So.
I'm a Ghosty fan. Ghosty user.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, there are many, and those are just the ones that kind of got a lot of press. So we got 3 now, and in RedMonk's terms, that's a quorum. Like that's a trend at this point.
Well,
so we've got
we have
3 projects.
Actually, we have.
That was
one of the things that we did was we added this code owners file to the GitHub repo. And so those are the ones that can actually go and do the deploy. You actually have to be one of those people to like initiate like the PR deploy.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So if I am
rando is not going to be able to do it.
Or maybe me. Yeah, actually I am a rando. So if I did it, what would happen? Do I have to like email you? Because I know some projects have done that where it's like you have to like reach out.
It would need to be approved by me. And then I would need to be on the PR in order to go and actually get it to merge in. So that has to be
interesting. Okay, got it. All right. So, all right. Well, shoot, I should add that to my list then. I've been maintaining, I'm up to like 89 projects now of open source projects and their AI policies. And there's a lot of nuance in there. Everyone's kind of, I haven't shared this with you. I will do that.
AI policies.
AI maintain, so a lot of open source
AI
projects
PR, generated PR product. Yes.
Yeah. So like how should contributors act around AI? Because some projects say absolutely no AI. No. Others say, well, you can use AI, but you have to tell us about it. And then they've got a little tag that they want you to use, like particular language. And then other ones say, we're using AI, but we're not allowing external PRs, like Steve Reed says that for TL Draw. So we've got all kinds of different approaches to how this should look. But I just added a new section last week for this use case of like no external PRs. But there's some nuance in there, right? Like some are allowing them, but like in your case where it's like you have to have, it's not just like open. You need to have somebody, I guess sponsor you. Like you have to be a known
essentially
commodity.
When you want to land it, right?
Yeah. Right. And even I've heard this from maintainers where they say, like, be a face. Just don't be an anonymous person. Like, reach out, join the Discord, become a person that we could be like, okay, this person is cool.
It's a serious problem. Like that. There are, and every project is getting flooded with this stuff. I mean, I remember as part of like the Friend and Fire podcast, we would talk about, the issue with junior engineers not getting, hired, not having opportunities, not being known. And one of our answers to that was, do some PRs. And this is kind of pre-AI days. And so, encouraging people to do PRs, but then people are like kind of lazy. And so they're like, hey, Claude, make a PR for this project. It goes and does whatever.
No.
And then that kind of like gets out of hand. And
yes.
So OSS developers are getting flooded with this stuff, and that's kind of a burden on top of everything else. Most of these folks aren't getting paid anything, they're getting burned out. It's not great. I would say the only project I can speak of when it comes to TanStack around this is AI. We're fine with AI, with AI generated PRs. Most of TanStack AI was written with AI. So it kind of came out, like we started writing it like November last year, I would say. In that kind of range.
That's when they were getting good.
Yeah, and the AI is really getting good, and so we wrote a lot of it with AI. Everything was we looked through all the code, manual code reviews, and all that, but a lot of it was AI generated, and there were various parts of it too that are sort of more or less reviewed like that, like the core stuff, like the main kind of loop of the AI stuff. The agentic loop is obviously like we looked over that in every little nook and cranny, but we got a lot of demo apps in there. And I don't know, you're just sort of like, okay, it works. It does the stuff.
Okay. So there's, always been jokes about developers not being security minded. Have you noticed that since a lot of this has been going on, that folks have become more so, where they are suddenly like, hey, security is a big deal. We want to be involved in the CISO office, like we want to bang down the door and say, like, security is super important today, and we care about it, and we're paying attention. You're laughing.
No, I do. Like I definitely think a lot about, because I personally pay for a lot of like AI services, and those AI services have the API keys, and that's what these things are rooting around for. So my personal setup, I've worked hard to try and not leak any of that stuff. But again, this exploit could have gotten that as well, because at the point, that's an interesting one too. Nowadays, there's some mechanisms that you can use that will actually, like, the app itself doesn't even have the API token. It's they've got some sort of like API token placeholder that's like, insert API token here. And then when they make the request, the shell that is actually around the app then intercepts that request and puts in the actual API token before it goes off to the LLM or whatever. So even if you were to get into the app itself, you wouldn't even have the credentials at runtime, which is pretty cool. I don't run that way, but there is like, I think Dino, they just did was it Claw? It's like a Claw container thing that they have, where you run your app inside of this thing, and then it goes and makes sure that you don't do anything nefarious, kind of deal, where is, or you is in this case like your app or your Claw. So there's more of these kind of harnesses coming out. But it's definitely a thing where it's like, I think about this a lot. You kind of have to, which is not great, but it's kind of the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
Okay, so you think this is more developers, you personally, and possibly everyone should be thinking about it.
Yeah.
You are thinking about it. We could perhaps interpret that as a signal that more developers are becoming security conscious.
Yeah.
We'll go that far.
I wish I could just spend all my time focused on app stuff,
coding. Right.
Like making the customer
building,
happy. That's what matters to me. But no, you have to think a lot about, like, all the front end security. Are my API routes secure? Are they secure from like, abuse? Not just like security stuff, but also, am I opening up like an AI gateway endpoint here that basically anybody can use to like back in their Claude code or whatever? And then eat my tokens and all that stuff.
Okay. Well, as we are coming up on time, let me ask you one final question here as a wrap up. What sort of advice would you give to maintainers as they are invariably going to be encountering more of these security incidents. Like, what was your main takeaway that you would want to share with other folks who may find themselves in a similar exploited situation in the future?
Well, it depends. Like, post-exploited, actually having been exploited. I mean, that's
take it where you will. Take it where you will.
That's the fire thing. But I mean, pre-exploit, like, how do you make sure that you don't get exploited in the first place?
Yeah.
My thing would be, in this case, use off-the-shelf CI/CD stuff. So if Google makes like a package that's going to go and do a change set workflow, which is really good, and they have this, like, just camp on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they've done all the security work and all the rest of it. And so leverage that for your own stuff. Don't necessarily try and DIY that solution. It's very tempting, but don't, use off the shelf stuff. That would be one of my biggest things. Maybe also like upstream dependencies in your package, because then you're not going to have to, like, you don't, even if they get upstream exploited, like, you're not going to get, because you're pinned on a version that you can trust.
Got it. Okay. All right. Man, it just all comes down to supply chain these days. Everywhere I look.
Everything's supply chain attack. Yep.
Everything is supply chain. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big supply chain. I mean, like, you start almost any app, right? And the node modules ecosystem is like massive.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know. I don't envy you working on this stuff in this situation. I mean, it's a huge task. Yeah. So, Atlas with the world on your shoulders. That's what I imagine. So you're doing the good work. How can folks keep up with what good work you're doing, Jack? Like, what's your social channels? Where should folks follow to keep up?
Sure. I'm at Jaher, JHERR, and almost everywhere. On YouTube, you can go to @Jaher and you'll get my YouTube channel where you can keep up with all things kind of front-end / AI focused. You, of course, can jump on Front End Fire, the podcast with my friends TJ Van Tol and Paige Niederinghaus. And that's more like a news show, which I think is actually kind of cool. It's not, it is all human. Like, there's no AI generated stuff in there, no AI generated voice or whatever. It's just us. And on Twitter is Jaher, GitHub is Jaher, LinkedIn is Jaher, I think. And then I don't know. There's Blue Sky, but I guess there's people over there nowadays. Every once in a while I log in to like post something, and it's like I got a couple notifications like, oh, okay, people are talking over here, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Okay, so amazing. And yes, and I can attest to Front End Fire being a great community. And you have a Discord channel for that as well, right? Where the folks are chatting. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yes. I feel like that's for the youngs, though. I don't. I've got Discord. I go in there for conferences sometimes, but I'm not a chronic Discord user. So
person?
I guess I'm a millennial. I don't know. We're like Slack people. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, but mostly because we use it at work. Red Monk's a Slack shop.
Okay.
So
it's better than Teams.
We're on there.
Anything's better than Teams. Oh my God. I hate Teams.
All right. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So, I'll close this out here. Really enjoyed speaking with you today. Again, my guest has been Jack Herrington. And my name is Kate Holterhoff. I'm a senior analyst at Red Monk. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and review the Monkcast on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching us on Red Monk's YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, and engage with us in the comments.
See you next time.